Okay, everybody. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Riveting Trips with Jeanie Colclough. I'm here with my guest, Omar BaniHani of Visit Jordan from the Jordanian Tourism Board, and he's here to share with us the best places to take your kids on this magical place called Jordan. Omar, can you please introduce yourself?
Thank you, Jeanie. I'm really happy to be here with you today. My name is Omar BaniHani. I'm the marketing director for Jordan Tourism Board in the North America office. And I'm excited to talk to you guys about what things you could do in Jordan for family travel. Jordan is a wonderful place for family visitors. So excited to talk to you further.
I'm so glad you could be here. So, first of all, not many people are familiar with Jordan, right? Can you tell us more about the locality, where it's located, and maybe considering family holiday vacations, when would be the best time to go and for how long for the first time visitor?
Visitors to where Jordan is, it's in the Middle East. I like to tell people it's as far as Hawaii from you, at least in the East Coast in the US. So a lot of travelers think about that as a long haul trip and so forth. It's not as bad as you actually think. It's about a 10 and a half hour flight out of New York, 10 and a half to 11 hours from New York, Chicago, Detroit. Royal Jordanian flies over there. You could, of course, also connect in many countries in Europe and in the Middle East on the known carriers. This is Jordan is a year-round destination, so it's not something that you only go in a certain period of time. But we know that a lot of families to take their kids during summer break or spring break or the holidays like Christmas and maybe Thanksgiving and so forth. And Jordan would be a fantastic place for you to go and take your kids during that time. And again, as I said, it's a year-round destination, so there's so much to see and do in Jordan anytime in the year.
And what would are there certain religious celebrations to consider working your holiday around, for example, in terms of crowds and tourism?
Yeah, I want to say Ramadan is a month where many Jordanians fast, and but it doesn't really have a lot of effect on the traveler visiting the country. If anything, they get to maybe have the experience, cultural experience of having breaking the fast with a local family or something like that, which would be really wonderful and great to learn about other cultures. See, the things about so something is very important to mention about Jordanians. We pride ourselves with our hospitality. The hospitality is not necessarily just something that you acquire, it's something that you have. The Jordanians, for the longest time, there's a lot of Bedouins living in the desert area, and it had profound effects on the cultural aspects of the interrelationships in between people. You had to be hospitable because that was the way of survival for thousands of years. Fast forward to today, where the country is not a Bedouin country. There are some Bedouins that exist in the country. They could still go visit and have a one-on-one conversation with them and an experience. But the Jordanians all carry that with them. I think it's in our genes. So if you're there in Ramadan or not in Ramadan, you're always going to expect that from the Jordanians. So hospitality is our biggest draw. People go to Jordan thinking that the history and culture are going to be the best
Right.
parts and visiting Petra, the Dead Sea, and so forth. But they come back with the memories of connecting with the locals and having that experience.
I see in your background you have an image of camels, and can you
Yes.
explain like how you would incorporate that to a family on a family trip?
Of course, I think Wadi Rum is one of the best places for family travelers because I think it's the one place where both the parents and the kids get to play around. You can go on, this is the desert of Wadi Rum. It's well known, lots of great stories that took place there, such as the story of Lawrence of Arabia took place in Wadi Rum and with the people that
Right.
live in Wadi Rum. But also for the younger travelers, this is where The Martian was filmed. It was Mars on the film and Transformers, Dune 1 and 2, Aladdin was also filmed there, so that's also another one. So I think that the adults can get on a four-wheel drive and get to go out in the desert and enjoy yourself, see some amazing history, some petroglyphs that date back to thousands of years. And for the kids, I mean, people have sandboxes for their kids. This is a
Oh,
whole big sandbox that you can go and play with. So you get one with nature in Wadi Rum, and that's
right.
amazing. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site for the history. It's a nature reserve. It's amazing flora and fauna that is scarce but really beautiful. It is also an adventure desert experience. You get to camp overnight in some of those bubble tents that are well known in
Okay.
Wadi
I was
Rum.
asking about accommodations. What kind of accommodations could families look forward to in Wadi Rum?
Yeah, so lots of camping in Wadi Rum. So anywhere from rugged camping to luxury glamping, anything in between. Lots of properties out there. The one best thing I think about those is you get to have a cultural experience with the locals. So you get to cook like the locals, eat like the locals, ride camels, but then also sleep in a tent. Some of those wonderful ones that have views of the stars at night from your bed. And that's
Okay.
one very, very special thing to do. And your kids can also have stargazing experiences out
I
there,
was
like
going to
no
ask
other.
about stargazing, right? In terms of seasonality, is it best during a certain season or not so bad? It's year great year round because, it's the desert.
There are certain parameters I think that make stargazing better. They say when it's a night where the moon goes down and it's not full
Okay.
moon, something like that. I think that makes it better. In terms of clarity, you need a clear sky. We do get over 300 days of sunshine and clear skies in Wadi Rum. So your chances are very high of having a really good stargazing experience because of that. And it's also because there's no light pollution out there.
Right.
With the naked eye, you could see so much. So imagine how much you can see with a $30,000 telescope that is out there. That's just for you to enjoy and get to see. It's wonderful.
And because it's the desert in the winter, does it get chilly at night, or is there a big temperature differential between the day and the night?
Both in the winter and in the summer, it could get really hot in the day. It is dry heat always. It's
Okay.
a desert. The difference in temperature between the day and the night is also a big gap because it's very, very dry. But in the winter, it could get chilly at night. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. But you still expect to have sunshine in the day. Yes, you could visit at any time. I've been there in January, February, where it was cold. I still had a wonderful time and enjoyed myself. So it's not something that I actually like it more in the winter than in the summer, to
Okay.
be
To be honest.
honest.
That's
Yeah.
good to know, right? Insider's knowledge. I mean, I was talking to some other people about their places of origin or wherever they're from and whatever they're trying to promote. And they said, oh, well, you must do this or you must do that. So it's always great to get local insider tips. So, how
Sure.
about the first time, if you're going to Jordan for the first time, and because school vacations are limited in time, let's say 10 days, 2 weeks, other than the summer break where you might have more time, how would you create some kind of, obviously all the clients that I speak to are FIT, they do independent travel. So what would be the best way? They fly in and out of Amman, or they fly in Amman and out of another city?
Yeah, I would recommend flying in and out of Amman would be the best. It's a really major international airport, so you can connect you to the whole world. You would start the way we look at it is Jordan is a very small country if you really think about it. The everything you do there is driving distance. The only thing you might want to fly for is Aqaba, which is at the southern tip of the country on the Red Sea, and that is I want to say 20-minute, 25-minute flight.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
it's,
Quite
it's a
short.
4 hour drive.
Okay.
So that's the only one, the only way. So you would want to, in Jordan, you want to get your transportation and a guide and take you around the country. So any drive is going to be between half an hour to 4 hours, but mostly are going to be within 45 minutes to an hour drive from each location that you're traveling from. So you would use Amman as a station for a few days to see the northern parts and the eastern parts. And then you would want to start making your way down south towards Petra, Wadi Rum, and Aqaba and see some amazing things on the way there. And then on your way back north, when before you catch your flight out of Amman back home, you can stop along the way and go see places like Madaba, Bethany beyond the Jordan, the baptism site, basically, and stay a night or two at the Dead Sea. And then
Okay.
from there, you can transfer to the airport. It's about an hour to an hour and 15-minute drive from the Dead Sea to the Amman International Airport. So that's how usually people do it when you go into the country, just so you get to have understand the whole landscape of the country.
How about in terms of, before I travel with my kids, we always try to learn some local language or phrases to ingratiate yourself, or not be that snobby American that doesn't try to learn any foreign language skills before they go. What are some helpful terms for your kids to know, or how to say hi, thank you?
So the one thing that I want to comment on first is Jordanians speak English. It's our second language. So we do have English is widely spoken, signage is in Arabic and in English anywhere you go, menus at restaurants in English, everything. So you're not going to really find a major difficulty. When you have your guide or your driver or a local that you're hanging out with and they say Yallah, that means let's go. Or let's
Okay.
see. Yalla. I think that's a really, really useful one
That's a good
because
one.
they'll be speaking English to you the whole time, and then they'll just look at you and say, "Yalla,
I'll say that
let's
to my
go
kids.
along."
That's right. Let's practice before we go on a trip. If we go on a trip, yeah, that'd be awesome. And in terms of when people think of Jordan, they think of Petra. Are there child-specific or kid-friendly, multi-gen friendly activities around that area, or is it just the site itself?
I think the one thing that not just Petra by itself, but many other sites that you see in the country, they're outdoors. There are a lot of walking and exploring. The things that you see there are not behind glass windows. You're
Right.
really getting really immersed in it, right? You're literally walking in the footsteps of our ancestors. And I think that's an important thing to realize. When you're in Petra for multi-generational or for kids specifically, many of those sites are actually accessible for people with strollers even. You have lots of services that can support you as you travel through the country. But I think the value of visiting Jordan with your kids is seeing the previous civilizations, how they lived, how they did commerce, how they built, and how similar they are to us today. And I think
Yeah.
it's a phenomenal thing to learn from. It's amazing.
Do children or teens that are coming from abroad have multiple opportunities? What are opportunities that they can meet local kids their age? Are there activities where they could interact with children their age? I mean,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I want to say the Children's Museum in Amman is a very interactive experience. I think when they're in Amman, they should definitely go and check that out. It's a wonderful experience. You get to learn a lot and you get to have hands-on experience and activities and things that would be really special. Lots of Jordanian kids are visiting those museums on a daily basis from the local schools, and you get to see kids coming in from all over. Not that saying that that's going to be the best way to connect, but it's nice to see what the locals do and what the local kids are doing, which is really nice. You'll find a lot of kids all over the country going on tours because part of the ethos of our country is we teach our kids to go and see everything that we have in our country because it's our duty to tell everybody in the world about it. So you see lots of proud Jordanians going around, and even when they travel abroad and when they meet people from outside of the country, they want to tell them their story and say, "Oh, did you know that the Romans were here? Did you know where the Greeks were here?" But I also want to stress this: there's an eco lodge in the south, in an area called Finan, and it's
Okay.
called the Finan Eco Lodge. It's off the grid. It's a wonderful experience, and it's run by the local Bedouins. And you get to interact with everyone, with the elders, with the children, with all members of that community. And you can have one-on-one conversations. Well, they'll invite you to their tent and you'll sit around a fire, you'll have some coffee or tea, and you'll have a conversation. And the kids can meet and the kids can talk and interact. One of my favorite things is hiking around the Funan area. I like to go in the spring when you'll find some shepherds, some of those
Okay.
shepherd kids, and you get to talk to them and they're very friendly. I like to see the baby lambs, carry them and play with them. Exactly what you think when you're just immersing yourself in a place that it welcomes you in any corner that you're in. So don't feel shy. When you're in Jordan, Jordanians are not shy people. They will come up and talk to you. They want to know who you are. And this is what I tell people is you want to ask questions, right? You could be curious. Your kids are curious. You want to ask the locals questions. Be prepared to answer some of their own questions. And I think that makes for a really good dialogue. And
That
it's
sounds like
something that
fun.
we
I think
really memorable.
No, I mean, I think whenever we take our kids traveling, right? They've been to 20 plus countries now. You can only program so much on a day with children, right? They get tired after a while. They get winded. They're not like adults where they just kind of can go. And sometimes adults don't want to go, go, go. So what I've noticed is with kids, like even stopping at a local park or going to a local children's museum or an art museum that's more geared towards children or whatever age that you're traveling with, however old your kids are, you do meet locals. And my daughter and my son both have memories of like, oh, when we went to Warsaw or this museum and we saw these kids, or we went to the water fountains here and we played with those kids. So, it's just it's a memory that they have from their travels. I also wanted to have you kind of help dispel the myth. When people think of Middle East, they obviously think of kind of conflict zone, but Jordan is a very safe country. And can you just assure the listeners like the safety, because Jordan is not what you see going on right now, right? And it's not to displace or minimize what's going on in the rest of the world, but that I believe, at least from a tourism standpoint, Jordan is a very safe place to visit.
It's hard for somebody that is biologically and professionally biased, right? Like I am biased. I'm going to tell you that Jordan is great and all that, which I think it is. However, in terms of conflict, I think I want to invite the listeners to think for a minute how many conflicts were around Jordan for the last 25, 30 years. How many of them have happened? How many times was Jordan involved in that? Not at all. And that's something that, it's a sad truth that the region has some conflict. But it's something that we also have to navigate around. And I think in the travel industry, and again, your clients might not know this, but when I talk to my travel industry colleagues, such as yourself, you understand it and you know it as a fact. But that's because it's your business as well. For consumers and for potential travelers, they want to think, is it the right time to go now or not? There's nothing going on in Jordan right now. The only thing that's going on is that tourism arrivals are a little down from what it used to be, which I think is good news for you because pricing and availability is definitely something now that's a little more flexible. I also want to make sure that everybody understands that it ebbs and flows, the tourism arrivals. We get over 250,000 North American travelers per year. That number is down, but it doesn't mean that it stopped. Many Americans, thousands of them, are visiting Jordan as we speak. And it's something that you must know. Things I want to actually focus on are availability in Petra for hotels,
Okay.
Wadi Rum for hotels. Something that if you're thinking about Jordan, even if it's 6 months from now or 12 months from now, you should get on that right now because the minute a conflict is not in the news anymore as much as it is right now, let's say, when that happens, then it's a flood, the floodgates open, and then we have the other side of the issues, which is availability of guides and buses and drivers and so forth. So always plan ahead, come to Jordan as soon as you can. It's a beautiful place. Everybody in this world has to go visit Jordan at least once. And for
No,
kids, this is
yeah,
something they're never going to forget in their life.
no,
It's a
I
life
think
experience.
my grandmother, before she passed, she used to travel, right? After my grandfather passed, she'd travel on her own. And I have photos of her traveling throughout different countries. It's like, oh, you went to the Middle East when you were like 65, right? On your own. So I think if a little Korean grandma can go on her own in her 60s, families with young adults and young children can also go. I think actually it's probably safer now than it was back in the 80s.
I live in Northern Virginia. I'm a 10-minute drive from DC. And I feel a lot more safe in Jordan than I am in DC. That's just my personal perspective. When you're in Jordan, if you ask me, oh, if we get lost, shall we ask anybody? I was like, yeah, ask anyone on the street, talk to everyone, exercise caution, right? You want to be safe yourself anywhere you travel in the world. But in Jordan, we actually encourage you to communicate with the locals. That's some part of your experience in Jordan. And I tell people this, if you're expecting to go to Jordan to have fun, that's going to happen. But what you don't expect is that it's going to be a life-changing experience. This is not your regular trip to any destination or any place. This is something that when you're going to go and come back, it's going to change the way you look at life and look at yourself and look at your history. It's life-changing. We are still a boutique destination as well. We're not a
Yeah.
destination for mass tourism, the millions and millions of Americans traveling. We want to grow, of course, but sustainably. That's something we also think about. Jordanians think about Jordan in this sense. Everything we have in our country is precious. These are historic sites for our ancestors, not the Jordanian ancestors. It's ours as human beings. That's why we work really hard to get more of our sites to become part of the UNESCO World Heritage Sites.
So
7
they're
now in
protected,
Jordan.
right? Yeah. they're protected. Yeah.
7 in Jordan.
7. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
7 in Jordan. They're the baptism site of Jesus Christ at Bethany beyond the Jordan. We just mentioned Petra,
right.
of course, Qusayr Amra, which is a desert castle, and then Al Jamal, which is the newest addition, and it's a site in the north. And then there is an entire town or entire city called Salt, SALT, just like the salt you put on your food.
Yeah.
And it's an ancient city, and the entire city is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So you have those and many other things. These are the ones that are recognized by UNESCO, right? But there are so many more that you will go and see
I
and
mean,
just see what
there's
it is.
more, right? And I know some countries also have what they call like the intangible UNESCO, considered a heritage thing. I was in Portugal in this one town, and
Yeah.
their kind of singing was considered a protected UNESCO cultural.
When you go through Jordan, it's where a lot of civilizations collided. It's where the
Right.
Romans were. It's where the Greeks were. It's where the Ottoman Empire was. It's where the British Empire was. It's where everybody, and you see it, and you see the whole thing, and it goes back to Neolithic times. There's a site in Amman in Ain Ghazal that dates back to 8800 BC. I
That's
mean,
good.
it's older than the oldest pyramid in Egypt. So you have to think of that to understand really what is going on there. So we prep our kids to talk to everyone in the future about what they've learned about their own culture and how we're there to protect it for everybody in the world to come and see it.
Crossroads of civilization, really.
And that's, I think, one of the biggest things that people don't know, but they don't fully understand it until they get there and they see the magnitude. Like when you go and see Petra, Petra was a city, not a site. You
Yeah,
used
yeah.
to have over 30,000 people that lived there at some point. Also, Jerash. Jerash is a major Greco-Roman city that had over 35,000 people living there. So when you say I'm going to see Jerash, you're going to see an entire ancient city. And Petra is the same thing.
Yeah, there's
Very impressive.
so much to do. How about in terms of any cultural idea or things we should know about Jordanian culture? I mean, obviously they're very friendly people, or maybe like cuisines, certain cuisines that kids would love to try and then they miss when they are not in Jordan anymore. What do you hear from your travelers?
I'm going to use my niece and nephew. My niece and nephew live here in the US, and they go and visit the grandparents, my parents in Jordan. They're picky eaters, but there's always something for them to eat because I'll tell you this. I'm going to be very realistic here, right? The food is phenomenal, very fresh. When you think in Jordanian food, think garlic, lemon, lemon juice, and olive oil on everything, almost everything. And which these are great flavors. They're fresh, lots of vegetables. So most of the mezes, what we call basically the small plates that you get at the beginning, appetizers, right?
Yeah.
So when you get those, they're mostly vegetarian, the vast majority of them. So if you have picky eaters, or the parents are picky eaters as well, they
There are
have
some.
there are some, right? Or if you have food allergies or
Right.
restrictions and so forth, you have lots of opportunities. So the one thing that I think has great value, that we have great value in Jordan in our cuisine, is that you never have to let go of quality and flavor because of your restriction or because you don't eat certain things. There's French fries at every meal, everywhere. Your kids will at least encourage them to eat a lot of the Jordanian foods. They're wonderful. Lots of simple things as well. Our food is not necessarily complex. It's very simple. Like a plate of hummus with pita bread is something that you see on every meal as well, or available and everywhere you go.
My kids for most meals.
Yeah, they might turn into a chickpea by the end of the trip, but the food is not going to be an issue because lots of great opportunities. Of course, lots of fresh fruit and vegetables as well on every meal. Something that this is part of our cuisine.
That's awesome. Well, I wanted to thank you for coming on this episode.
You should go to Jordan ASAP. Make it happen. The weather is now beautiful. One of the best times of the year to go is between now and mid-November. So if you got plans to go, and if you're telling yourself, I'm going to wait until next year or next season or 6 months from now, just don't do it. You can actually book last minute now and make your way over there and call Jeanie. She's great.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Omar.
Thank
Once
you.
again, Thank you for coming and listening to another episode of Riveting Trips with Jeanie Colclough. I'm a Condé Nast top travel specialist specializing in family travel. Ciao, ciao, everybody.